Chess World Cup that is taking place in Sochi, Russia. They are now in the fifth round, but sadly, all African representatives have been whacked out of the tournament. We only had Amini Basim, the Grandmaster Amini Basim of Egypt, that still remained in the tournament, but he was booted out of the tournament by Grandmaster Baccarat Etienne of France. Actually, they had to go all the way to the tie breaks. It was quite a splendid performance by Grandmaster Amini Basim. But now let's talk about the general performance of the African players. In the first round, we saw quite some interesting highlights from Africa. For example, we saw a very good game by international master Chitumbo Mwari of Zambia, who was actually playing against Grandmaster Matilosian Haik of Armenia. It was quite an interesting game, actually, because they have a rating of about 356 ELOs difference, which is quite big. But I am Chitumbo Mwari of Zambia actually demonstrated that rating is just but a figure. In the first game, actually, Chitumbo was in black pieces, and he lost to this guy, to this grandmaster from Armenia, Mati Rosian. He lost in black pieces, but then in the second game, actually, the whole world actually was astonished when this Zambian guy, the Chitumbo Mwari, the Copper Eagle, they call him the Copper Eagle, he actually retaliated, and he actually scored against this grandmaster from Armenia to level the scores and to push the game into tie breaks. I mean, this was really actually something to smile about, and only that I didn't find chance to talk to President Mukubulo Chilufya of Zambia. I think he should be very happy about, I think he was very, very, very happy about this result. So, but then when they went to the tie breaks, the Copper Eagle actually was butchered 2-0. But it's still something to talk about. I mean, scoring, I mean, coming from behind against a grandmaster of that caliber. I mean, somebody 356 rating, I mean, ELOs, I mean, higher than yourself. I mean, it's not a joke, because this guy has actually a rating of about 2637 against Chitumbo 2281. Okay, so I mean, this is really good news. Another highlight we should talk about is the game between Grandmaster Hisham Abdelrahman of Egypt and Grandmaster Ahmed Adli of the same Egypt. This was an Egyptian derby, and everybody was so, you know, as you know already, Adli is the Africa champion. Okay, he won the Africa Individual Chess Championship in Lilongwe, Malawi, just about a month ago. And you know what caliber of player he is, very ruthless, and actually, indeed, in the first game, he did exactly that. He destroyed GM Hisham Abdelrahman really in style. I mean, in the first game, I mean, nobody actually could ask about that. I mean, nobody could question about that. It was really high-class chess from Grandmaster Adli Ahmed. He butchered Hisham in the first game. As you remember, Hisham is also a former Africa champion. I think he won it, is it in 2016 in Uganda. He won the Africa Individual Chess Championship that time. I remember because in that tournament, Andrew Kayonde was number 2. Zambian Andrew Kayonde was number 2, and Hisham was number 1. And that's where he got the Grandmaster title, because if you win a continental championship, automatically they give you a Grandmaster title. So that's where he got it. But here after he loses the first game, he retaliated in the second game to level the scores 1-1. But then when they went into the tie breaks, actually Hisham actually really showed what he is made up of. Actually, they drew one game, and then Hisham actually won the other game. So things have not been so rosy. I mean, for Grandmaster Ahmed Andle. People had so much expectations about him. I mean, fresh from the African Individual Chess Championship. I mean, people were like, I mean, let's see how far this guy is going to go. But then Hisham continued the tournament in the second round. He was paired against Konstantin Lupelusk, Grandmaster Konstantin Lupelusk, but then he lost 2-0 and he was also eliminated. Okay, let's talk about another interesting friction. An interesting game of the tournament, African game of the tournament. Grandmaster Belal Belassin of Algeria actually he drew first game and then he drew the second game, but then when it came for the tie breaks, he lost 2-0 against Grandmaster Gabuzian Hovan of Armenia. I mean, Belal Belassin is also playing good chess. You know, this guy is based in France. He came for the Africa individual, I mean, that time in Lilongwe. He flew all the way from France to represent Algeria. He's the Algeria champion. And then here he was representing Algeria. And he actually, in this tournament, they were saying there was a gap of about 90 ELOs of his opponent, Gabuzian Hovan of Armenia, Grandmaster Gabuzian Hovan. And people actually were like, this is the smallest letting gap. 90 is a small letting gap according to because African lettings are on the lower side. So he was also booted out of the tournament. And another interesting performance was this guy, Chireso Chipanga of Malawi. Chireso Chipanga played against Grandmaster Baskalan Adiban of India. You know, in India, this guy, Baskalan Adiban, is known as the beast. They call him the beast. So he was there against Chireso Chipanga from Malawi, letting difference 557 yellows. So they were first game. And funny enough, this Abidan guy and Chireso Chipanga, they got the same style of chess. Both of them, they like attacking chess. So they were there. So they played, the Grandmaster played, Chireso Chipanga played e4, and the Grandmaster actually responded with the flank defense, and Chireso quickly took it to the Talach variation. You know the Talach variation where you play knight d2. So they landed into this sharp-edged position because there was an overt somewhere in the very first few moves. Baskalan played an overt. I mean, you know, these guys, these grandmasters, they can twist the game the way they want. So, I mean, at a rating of about 26-60, Baskalan Abidan actually concocted an overt. I don't know whether he cooked it in his trap or he found it right there on the board. But this overt made the game interesting because Chireso was attacking this side and Baskalan Abidan was attacking this side. So they played. It was quite a very tough fight, a fierce fight. But the Grandmaster showed that he is indeed a Grandmaster, and he squeezed a win against Chireso Chipanga. And Chireso lost, and then he lost again the second one. Though the game was a bit drawish, the second game was a bit drawish, but he lost. Another interesting game was about, the one involving Grandmaster Nihal Salim of India, another Indian guy. You know, the Indians have stepped up their game. We got several Indian masters that are really playing very well. You know, remember India is the home country of this former world champion, who is also regarded as one of the greatest chess players in history, Vishy Anand Viswanathan. So, I mean, he has been a role model in India, and no wonder chess in India has attracted a lot of sponsorship. That's why we say, if you mod good athletes, I mean, that shine up there, it's very easy to attract sponsors. So this guy, Anand, has been a role model in India, and no wonder you find players like Nihal Salim. He's only about 17 years old, I think. And but he's playing very good chess. And funny enough, this guy, Nihal Salim, was just coming from Serbia, where he won a very lucrative tournament. So when he was meeting Arthur Segwani, and Arthur Segwani, on the other hand, he's also known to be a very formidable player. Remember, some years ago in 2015, he actually he drew against Super Grandmaster, this top Grandmaster Anish Giri, who is famous for draws. He actually drew Anish Giri. I mean, to draw a player of Anish Giri's caliber, it's not a joke. So I mean, in the 2015 World Cup, that's what this Arthur Segwani did. And he's actually very much respected in Uganda. He won the qualifiers in Uganda. He's gallantly represented his country, and there he has got all the morale. There he was up against this guy, Nihel Salim. They played the first game. Bah! They played, and it ended. Actually, he lost. But though the game was drawish, but Grandmaster Nihel Salim actually won this one. But then the second game, actually, International Master Arthur Segwani actually managed to force a draw, and that's how he was wiped out of the World Cup. So, Uganda has got good players. You got Harold Wanyama, Patrick Kauma. These are very formidable players. So there's something right is happening in Uganda that side. I think their president should be now Emmanuel Maka. Emmanuel Maka is the president of the federation and is very serious about developing chess in the country. No wonder they are producing players of this caliber. Another interesting one was against Jose Adams of Egypt, a very useful grandmaster. I think she'd be 21 or so, 21 years old. He was playing against former Russian champion Alexei Evengen. Alexei Evengen is, no need for introduction. This guy is 26.05 against Jose Adams 24.85. And the first game they played, they drew. It was Jose Adams was actually, he put in a gunfight. He put a decent fight they drew the first game, and when they played the second game, they actually also drew. And then when they played that meant that the game should be carried over to the tie breaks. And in the tie breaks, it turned out that the Egyptian was actually drew one game, and he lost the other. But people commended him for putting up a ground fight. But then you find that most of these African players were actually losing in the time breaks. Small time duration games are actually a problem maybe for Africa. But you look at the performance in the long games, I think they've really tried. But for the rest of the other players, you find that I am Rodeo Makoto actually lost 2-0 the first round. Grandmaster Daniel Balish lost 2-0. Miguel Sergio of Angola lost 2-0. Asian Agent of Egypt lost 2-0. Olan Lewaju of Ajibola. Olan Lewaju Ajibola of Ephraim Olan Lewaju Ajibola of Nigeria actually also lost 2-0. And Tizia Muhammad lost 2-0, and Muhammad Abubakar FM also lost 2-0. So these were the results. But then there was a bonus for Africa, because Africa's champion, Grandmaster Amini Basim. I think most of you know him. Grandmaster Amini Basim. I think most of you know him. He is rated about. He's rated 27.01, and by that he is in the top 50 players of the planet. And the top 50 players of the planet were exempted from round one. So they were starting the tournament from round two. Round one they were on bye. So when he ventured the tournament, he was playing against Hufgan Gabuzan, Grandmaster Hufgan Gabuzan. This is the guy from Armenia who played against who worked Grandmaster Bilo Belasin out of the tournament. So when they played, the African Grandmaster, the African highest rated player actually won 1.5 to 0.5. It was quite a very good performance. And then for the third round, Baccarat Etienne, when they played, Baccarat Etienne drew with, they drew the first game, then the second game they drew again. People were like, ah, come on, what has happened? I mean, these guys are equally strong. Let's go to the tie breaks. That's when you find that Baccarat, Etienne, Grandmaster Baccarat actually won overall. Actually, he won 2.5 to 1.5. So, so what does this mean for Africa? The farthest Africa has gone is round 3, and if you compare from the previous World Cups, like the result by international master Chitumbo Mali of Zambia, he goes down in history as to be